Do you ever feel stuck, like you're living your life on autopilot? Are you ready to shift into high gear and reach the success you so richly deserve? Welcome to the Play Big Movement podcast. I am your host, Sharon Lechter, entrepreneur, business strategist, and best-selling author. Playing big is not about settling for good enough or being comfortable. It is about reaching your highest potential and achieving your greatest success. Join me in my Play Big movement as I interview top experts in business, money, and entrepreneurship, all ready to serve you and to help you play big, be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast with Sharon Lechter. I'm excited today because I get to introduce you to a superstar, someone that I've just met recently. She reached out to me and I was on her podcast. So enjoyed being with her and really love what she's doing. So I wanted to introduce her to you so that you can learn from her. Annette Comer, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Sharon. And it's wonderful to see you again. We had such a good time when we were together the other day.
I love it. Just almost can complete each other's sentences.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly
Yes.
right.
Yeah, amazing.
And having just met at that, you know?
Yes, that's right. You live in Virginia, so I love the beautiful state this time of year. Absolutely gorgeous. I love the intro that you have on your site. You talk about the fact that you love hiking and horseback riding and yoga. And I just, I'm kind of jealous. You said you can't put your leg behind your head, but you can touch your toes easily. I haven't been able to touch my toes in a while, so I'm impressed.
We'll work on that then. How about that? We'll go
right.
to your ranch and work on that.
That's right. So you have a 20-year corporate career as a mechanical engineer. So you went all over the world and have impacted people everywhere, but you never lost your entrepreneurial spirit. So I read you actually paid your way through college as a Tupperware salesperson, and then
I did.
And you were awarded Woman of the Year by the National Association of Professional Women. And you've written the book that's over your shoulder called Rescue Me. And I love that. And it's about how to save yourself and your sanity when things go wrong. And you continue to strive to help others. And you have lots of different initiatives that you're working on right now. And your World's Greatest Women podcast is where we originally met. And I had such a great time talking to you. And I just want to welcome you to this podcast so that you can share a little bit about. But tell me a little bit more about little Annette. How did this all begin?
Well, a very different place than where I am now, for sure. I grew up on a farm in the mountains of Virginia, and my parents were very meager beginnings. My father never went beyond an 8th grade education. My mother finished high school but was a waitress, so very, very humble beginnings for sure. But in that, there's something special, Sharon, about growing up on a farm. You learn to be grounded. You learn hard work. You learn ethics. Your moral compass is well defined, and I think that has guided me all my life. So when I left home and went off to college, the funny thing was in school, high school, I got all these awards: physics award, math award, English award, all these awards. So like any 18-year-old, you're saying, well, what do I go into school? So I decided that I needed to go with something that I got an award in, because that must be good in something that, So I went off to college majoring in physics. And about a year in, I thought, oh my goodness, this is way too nerdy. And I went into engineering, which I look back now, I think what ridiculous rationale that was. But I went on and completed my degree in mechanical engineering. As you can imagine, I was one of maybe 3 women in a class of 100 and some young men. And when I completed that, I went into corporate and learned very quickly what it was like to be in a very male-dominated arena. And they really didn't know what to do with you. I mean, and that charted a course for me. And as I went in through my 20s and 30s, in my late 20s, I got the bug to say what it would be like if I had a business on the side. So I opened the storefront. And at night I would go to do that. And on the weekends and during the day, I was doing my corporate thing. And then as time went by, I got more companies, left corporate when I was 40, developed an international company working with top executives around the world, and just played. Hard work playing, but played.
You still do a lot of mentoring and support for people and that are still in corporate America and those that are transitioning. And so tell me a little bit about the birth of your World's Greatest Women Initiatives, your podcast television show. What gave birth to that?
The idea came to me at the strangest place. I was sitting, waiting for a plane on the island of Kauai. And I had spent a year at that point in time trying to understand why were women not doing better after the Gloristein period, all this bra burning and all these things that we had accomplished over the last 40 years. The stats were horrible. And the curious side of me said, why is that? So I spent a year interviewing the male executives that I had the pleasure of working with around the world, as well as watching female executives shoot themselves in the foot all the time. And it was from that I started to think, wow, women should be great. They have all the right stuff. They have the education, they have the drive. I mean, I can make the list long, and that they have the compassion, they have the balance, blah, 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 blah. But yet it was horrible. So I decided that I was going to create something called the World's Greatest Women Academy, which is where it started. And then from that, the podcast was born, which you were so kind to be a guest on. And then the TV show is being developed from that. So, and it's very simple. The purpose is that women have very few role models to let them know that they can do it too. There's one out there doing it. You and I have done it, still doing it.
Right, that's right. And I think you're so right, Annette, because you growing up on the farm, me growing up with parents who were farmers when they grew up, and my dad always had a big garden. So the work ethic, understanding that if you wanted something, you had to get it. There were no free lunches. It was, you want something, you work hard, you get it, and you do it with integrity. And that instills in us this amazing drive that got us to where we are. You know, I would tell my parents, we need to bottle whatever you did to me. So we, all these kids today that don't have a moral compass, and they don't really understand that to work hard to get what they want and to be self-driven and self-motivated. And we couldn't figure out what it was, because it drove me. I was probably a little overdosed on it, because I had to kind of turn it down a little bit. I was so driven. But it's something that I think is so important for people to do today, to understand, and coming from you. And that's why I think it's so important. I want you to share what drove you to write Rescue Me, because I think the essence, I want the messaging of your book for you to share with our audience.
The book was a creative nonfiction that is a true story. And it is a story about my brother and I, who went into business together. Which, by the way, I wouldn't recommend that. But just to those listening, family, going to business with family, unless it's your spouse, can be tough. And we went into business, bought a large size company. He had no entrepreneur experience, but he thought I made it look really easy. And the business went sideways because 9/11 happened shortly after we bought the company, and we were very heavily leveraged. And the book is about our journey of trying to salvage the company and the incredible amounts of money that we had invested in it, and how that turned out, and how we struggled to maintain the relationship between a brother and a sister who had grown up together. We were only 2 years apart. And so in the book, I wrote the book because I really wanted to share the lessons of how we pulled through such horrific times, how we had 10 credit cards trying to figure out how to pay bills and float cash, and how, the employee challenges and the things that we did to try to maintain some sense of humor and not let the stress get so bad that we couldn't think or maintain any kind of relationship. It was crazy times. And
well, and I think we're in those crazy times again.
I think we are too.
A lot of people are finding themselves in that same situation. And, I often, tongue in cheek will say blood and money don't mix. It's very difficult when it's a family situation. And you really have to work very hard at keeping the personal relationship intact when you're having
Very
such
hard.
financial stress. So many families, I see it all the time when somebody passes away, their kids just go at each other's throats because of the money. And it just is so sad. It's so sad that, that kind of emotion has to impact a family in such
Yes.
dire ways. But I think it's also standing in who you are and your integrity and what you want out of life. And I'm sure that experience went a long way to wanting you to reach out and help other people as well, right?
It certainly did, because if you speak to entrepreneurs alone, they have such big dreams, and they put everything they have into it, all their finances, they burn the midnight oil. And when things like what we're in right now, Sharon, when things take a tide that they don't have control over, it's horrifying. And it's so easy to lose hope. And I really probably ought to do another push on this book right now, because it can help so many people see that, when things just go completely sideways, there is a way out. And it's not an easy way out, but you can do it. And there's models in that I showed, the tools that we used, and how we figured out where we were going to build the business back, and how and you're right, blood and money. It was because it's if you have somebody that's with you in business, and you can certainly relate to this, I'm sure, and they aren't family, if things start to go south, you just say, hey, it's not working out. Mm-hmm. Let me help you find another job. If it's your brother, it's you see him at Thanksgiving and Christmas. All these things.
Well, I always tell people high emotion, low intelligence. Right? So you have high emotion from a financial stress situation. You have high emotion because of the family relationship. So that's double trouble on making intelligent decisions moving forward. It's really hard making decisions when you have that high emotional
Absolutely.
state.
Yeah, well put.
So you work with a lot of corporate executives that are, I'm sure this year, quite stressed with everything that's going on. What are some of the strategies that you give people that are feeling themselves where they need to be rescued? What kind of strategies are you sharing with people this year?
Well, there's one thing I talk about in the book that I have really pressed my executives to utilize, and it's a model I call the old boy, and it's OBOY. And what that stands for is that, and this is how I used to turn that company around, and some of them are using this to also find their way out of this. And that is to find opportunities that they think that they could step up to, look at the barriers that are there to those opportunities, find the options to get around those barriers, and then figure out what the yield is if they do that. And what you find using that model, if you take it to heart and really go into a conference room and work that out, you'll be able to brainstorm all kinds of opportunities. And what you'll find is the ones that have a lot of barriers to them also are the ones that have the highest yield. And there's the least competition in those areas. So if you're willing and have the way, lots of times you already have equipment you're not using, or, whatever resources might be, manpower, might be talents within your company. And if you'll start looking at opportunities that way, and instead of going after where everybody else is going, looking for those places where there are barriers, there's reasons nobody's going to those places, and then go there, figure out your options to solve them, the yield will be amazing.
I love that. That's a real fresh way of looking at it. I talk about go the road less traveled, do what,
Right.
go where nobody else is going. But I love the fact that you've synthesized it in such a powerful way. So if somebody wants to find you, Annette, how can they find you? I know we've got the podcast, World's Greatest Woman Podcast.
Right.
How else can they find you on a website?
Well, they can find me at www. and then my name, AnnetteComer.com. That's probably the best place for them to find me. There's links there that they can get to other places of where they can figure out how they work with me, or what I'm about, and they can learn a little bit about the World's Greatest Women Academy itself as an event that they can be a part of, and they can also find out other goodies.
So women that are in a transition that right now really don't know, they've been in corporate, maybe they've left corporate because of the craziness this year. They really don't know where to start, and they've got obviously emotional issues, or feeling that their life has kind of come to an end, and yet there's such opportunity. Well, what are your words of wisdom and encouragement for women that are feeling a little bit lost today?
Well, there's a couple of resources that I'd encourage them to move toward that's free to them right now, that they can consume at their own pace. And one is the achieveandthrive.com. And there are connections to a podcast. And in that podcast, I've teamed up with someone where we address what leadership, when it meets authenticity. And for these women that have been displaced and are in a transition, most of these women that you're probably referring to are leaders. Certainly all of us are leaders in some fashion. It's just a matter of how we bring it out. And at this point, it'll really be important for them to not lose their authenticity, because what happens for women, they try to figure their way forward. So they copy things they see. Mm-hmm. They'll copy the way a man's doing it, or they'll copy something else. They'll copy this. And it's kind of like trying on somebody else's shoes. It never quite fits right. It's never quite comfortable. And you could spin that back and say, is it our self-confidence? Is it this? And it's lots of things. A lot of it's confusion from the social messaging. A lot of it's our own confidence. A lot of it's, the times that we're in, whatever. But that podcast would be a place for them to start, because there's so many topics we address there of how to get back on track, to go for something big. How do you lead from love? Is it dangerous or isn't it dangerous? Who are the voices you're listening to? Are emotions getting in your way? How do you have emotions without being emotional? All these things that we're speaking to what women are dealing with.
I love that. And certainly you can start by getting her book, but look at her academy and listen to the podcast that she does, because that's how you help get yourself past those barriers, as you find the support and the mentorship that help you get over the emotional aspect, and hopefully kind of let a little of the air out of that tension and stress that you have in your life. So Annette, you're going to hang out with me for a few minutes. We're going to do another video for the Play Big Movement group, the private Facebook group. So all of you, if you've not listened to the Facebook, join the Facebook group, please do. The Play Big Movement is all about being number one in your field, living your legacy, and creating maximum impact. And all my guests help us one step at a time go in the right direction. So Annette, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I appreciate it.
Sharon, thank you for letting me be a part of your world. I really appreciate that.
And all of you watching and listening, thank you so much for being part of this tribe. Please share it, rewind and listen again. Share it with your friends and give us some nice reviews, and know that we're here to support you. And come back and visit us in the Play Big Movement podcast. Otherwise, go out there and have a fantastic day.